All right, we are here on PacWest Bigfoot. This is David, and welcome this good and beautiful Pacific Northwest morning to you. If you're listening to this in the morning, of course. Real quick, no real updates yet. I do have a page coming out on the website where you guys can get some awesome different fiction and nonfiction books alike about Bigfoot that I'm sure you'll enjoy. I've read them all, I own them all, and I think they're kind of a must for any Bigfooters library out here. I will also have some links on there to some awesome places for great Bigfoot encounter interviews and stories alike. Also, some research websites from some of my favorite researchers out here. So, and in the background, that was Heath. And Heath has his own encounter. As a matter of fact, I think he's been online before to share a story, but I wanted him to bring him here because some of you guys have not heard his encounter. And I really like for you guys to hear it because I thought it was just awesome. So anyways, Heath, welcome, man.
Thank you.
Right on. Where are you from?
Originally, I was born in Missouri, grew up in Mansfield, Texas.
Oh, nice, nice. And where did your sighting happen?
My sighting happened on Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay, all right. Well, what I like to do here, Heath, as you know, is I just let you take over and be as descriptive as you can. Tell us what you were doing out there, what was going on, and exactly what you saw.
All right. Well, I guess it was around in between that 95, 96-ish year. It was around November, so I had a guard detail that normally the MPs would have, but everybody was going to home on leave for Thanksgiving or whatnot, and all of us guys who were single privates at the time, we got shafted with the crappy guard details. So in this case, it was guarding an ammo holding area that was near the east gate of Fort Lewis, over by the Nisqually River. And that's also where the wildlife sanctuary and all that stuff is, where there's no foot traffic allowed. But that's where the special forces kept their equipment. It was over there. They had their own little warehouse. And it's where, I don't know if it was my group's AHA ammo holding area or my battalion's, but our ammo holding area was over there. And that's what I was guarding, me and one other person. But normally MPs would guard that. So I don't even know exactly where it was. I didn't really see anything until the next morning because it was kind of a knocked on my door, woke me up in the middle of the night in the barracks thing. Jump in the back of the Humvee, you got a guard detail. So it was around 2200 when that started, when the shift started. I'm sorry, around 10:22 or 10 o'clock. Heck, I don't even know when it started. It was dark.
Nice.
But it ended at 07 in the morning. So I get there, me and the other guy, I guess I shouldn't say his name. We get briefed on what to do. We are given, each given an M16A2 with 3 live rounds. The use of force continuum briefing. First shot's a warning shot. Second one's to maim. Third one's to kill. If anybody was to get in, it was a sensitive area. It's all our ammo and stuff. All right, so all's good. That's all done. They leave. Me and the other guy are just there. At around 11-ish, it wasn't quite midnight, so I'm guessing it was around 2300. We start hearing this, what we thought was a battalion of females saying "hua." I mean, a lot. And it was way off in the distance, but I mean, it's what it sounded like. But there are no battalion of females. But me and him weren't too far out of basic training. And back then, you did have companies full of all females. This is before the Army integrated with the co-op thing. You had all companies of all women, had companies all men. That just in basic.
Yeah.
Once we got out of basic, that didn't happen. But that's what it sounded like. So we stopped and listened for a while. Nothing. We waited a little bit longer. We could hear like it again, but it didn't sound like female saying "hua." It was off farther in the distance. So we went about doing our guard thing. It was real cold. It was November, and it was that not quite hail, but not quite rain hitting us. That sleet. It's not. I wouldn't even call it sleet. Just that freezing rain. It was
Yeah.
That's the one thing I remembered about that day, which comes into why I had my hood up later. But it was real windy, and the wind was coming from the roadside. And I don't even know if the road was the north. I'm guessing it was, yeah, that must have been coming from the east.
Hmm.
Anyway, sorry, as I'm telling this, like the memories are coming back in. Uh, it gets louder about around midnight. And at this point, we're arguing over whether this is avian or not. I mean, it was definitely not female saying "hua." There's an echoey thing to it.
Hmm.
And I made a mistake on that other show of mimicking.
No. Go ahead, man. Don't make a mistake. That's no mistake here. We like to actually kind of hear it.
I don't want to do that. I didn't even know I did that until I was listening to it. But it was like more like a hua ha 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 ha, and then I mean
Mhm.
almost like it. It had a fluctuation, like it was a question, but it was
Okay.
that over and over again. And there's actually the Klamath calls
Okay.
from Klamath, Oregon. It sounded
Yeah.
like that to a T, or the Puyallup Screamer,
The
but more
Puyallup
like.
Screamer, yeah, that's a
But
real
this was
familiar
more
one.
like Klamath. When I listen to them both, I think the Puyallup Screamer is the same vocal that's in Klamath, but you don't hear it as good as you hear it in Klamath.
Hmm.
Because the first thing I heard was the Puyallup Screamer when after the incident, because there wasn't really internet and you couldn't really look up all these things. It just happened to watch a Sasquatch documentary and they showed the Puyallup Screamer, and that was the closest thing to what I heard until I heard the Klamath calls,
Hmm.
and that was almost it to a T.
Hmm.
Okay, so at this point, me and the other guy are arguing: is this a bird? No, it's an elk. And we were both from Texas. We really didn't know Pacific Northwest fauna at that point. I do now. I'm in wildlife management. Back then, it was just the army. I'm saying maybe it's some type of weird owl, and he's saying maybe it's an elk. Anyway, we listened, and then we start hearing the footsteps. You just hear the crunch, crunch,
Yeah.
crunch. Actually, more like squish, squish, squish. Like you hear the sod, the water coming up out of the sod.
Hmm.
Now, the perimeter that we're at has a 12. It's 8 to 12 foot. I don't even know what size. I always said 12 foot, but then I was told maybe it was 8. But it's a big, huge fence, chain link. It goes all around all four sides. There's floodlights up on the posts that are going inwards to illuminate the perimeter.
Hmm.
And on top of the fence, there's 3 strands of barbed wire. And around the barbed wire, there's concertina wire that's wrapped around it,
Hmm.
razor wire.
Yeah.
Now, this was coming from, oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so the road was south. It was north because that morning, you could see Mount Rainier. So it was to the northwest of us, no, northeast of us. Okay, I remember. Okay, so she was coming out of the woods to the part of the fence we're hearing it is kind of facing Mount Rainier. It was that was where like the deep forest was, and I guess it connects into the
Hmm.
whatever park is over there.
Yeah.
So we're hearing it louder and louder and louder, and then the footsteps start. And then I said, "That is an owl, right?" At this point, it's not an owl. It sounded like the size of a cow, but it would just squish, 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 and it got real slow. And then you could hear it pacing. I mean, it was like squish, squish, squish one way, squish, squish, squish another way, but going like from left to right to us. And that's when I said, "That is a bird, right?" And then he said, "It's too cold for this. I'm going back to the guard shack." So I'm like, I can't do it. So now at this point, our platoon sergeant at the time was, how do I phrase that in a civilian word that sounds nice?
I am bring. This is I'm going to bring this up on a map here.
Okay.
Google Maps. Let me go ahead and share it with everybody real quick. Screen share. Let me know if you can see that. So when we
Yeah,
look at
they
Fort,
joined it.
yeah,
Back then, you had McCord Air Force Base in Fort Lewis. That's like one thing.
yeah, and this is let's see, in Mount Rainier, it'd be over this way. So you're out, say, in
Yeah, they're Spanaway.
Spanaway here.
Spanaway is where the road that I was on led out to, out of the East
Okay,
Coast.
all right.
But I was actually on the.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, that's pretty covered in there.
Yeah, was that neighborhood there back then?
Probably not, man. That's been
I
built
don't
up.
remember anything that developed.
You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, William Jevening. You guys most people know him from notes from the field, but back in the day, it was a real small area, real small, mostly just it was a small area. It was just Fort in a small town. It looks pretty built up.
Wow.
But when you
Yeah,
start
back
pulling
then,
out of here, I mean, you're talking about all of
Lakewood
this.
wasn't even a city back then. It was like a suburb of Tacoma.
Hmm.
Huh.
Okay. Yeah. Now it's all starting to blend into each other.
Oh, I hate seeing that.
I know.
All right. Anyway, where was I? So he goes back to the guard shack. Now I'm thinking it was our squad leader, and our squad leader was the kind of guy who he was cool with you until an officer came around. Then all of a sudden he wants to get all jumpy. Where's your military bearing? All that stuff.
Hmm.
We have a word for those guys, but I don't think I should say it on your show. Anyway, we thought it was. I thought it was him checking to see if we were sleeping or something because he was just like that. So I am armed. I have my M16 out. I point in the direction. I say, halt. Who goes there? And no response. So I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And so I repeated it again, but when this time the movement stopped. I mean, you could hear that it was walking back and forth, but then it just stopped. And then I started getting this eerie feeling because I know whoever it is, they're looking straight at me, but I can't see them.
Hmm.
I say it again, and I see the silhouette come out of she's in the wood line. I'm in the perimeter. In between us, there's like on the other show, I said a ditch, but it really wasn't a ditch. So it was like water runoff, but it wouldn't deep where I'd call it a ditch. But it's like a little divot in between the wood line and the perimeter I was in. I'm on a concrete slab. There's a fence. There's a little valley type. I mean, it's not deep enough to be called a ditch, but it's for water to run off.
Hmm.
And then a little bit of a slight hill, and then there's the wood line right there. So when she was coming towards me, I guess there's the wood line is maybe 20 yards from the perimeter. I see her silhouette. And my first thought is giant naked hippie woman coming out of the woods. I mean, it wasn't. I can't get into this because I got in trouble for doing that on the other show. My mother and grandmother had encounters in Missouri.
Hmm.
I can't get into it, but when they saw the Patterson Gimlin film, they said that's exactly what they saw. This isn't what I saw. It wasn't shaped like that. She was shaped like well, in my mind, back then it was like you had China in the WWE when she was alive.
Hmm.
That physique, it looked like her, like a big, huge, muscle-bound woman. But she had the hourglass figure like a human woman would.
Hmm.
Until she came up to the fence, and then now she's illuminated by the floodlights, but she's taller than the floodlights, so I can't see her face.
That's huge. I'm looking at the fence over here right now. That's pretty
Yeah.
tall.
Oh, wow. You have a picture of it. That is the fence. Oh, except the one I had a concertina wire around it. But
This has got right here on the top.
yeah, there's a
Oh
barbed
wait,
wire.
no, that's just barbed wire. Yeah. So the concertina wire is probably on the other side, out on the back end over here where you're talking about.
Okay, but on the actual slab, the fence looked like that. But now, if you every 3 or 4 poles over,
Hmm.
extend it up a little bit more, and you'll put floodlights up there, and that's what was
Okay.
on the perimeter.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, when did they put that fence in?
Yeah. This is in 2015. This was taken.
Huh. See, at that point, it was there wasn't really fence there. It was just open. Anybody could like walk through there. But the actual sensitive areas, like where the special forces kept their stuff, where we kept our stuff, all the sensitive stuff, had a
Yeah.
fence around the perimeter.
Hmm.
Wow, they just went ahead and
They pulled it all the way out to the street.
it must have been the Air Force guys.
Probably.
Which is funny because I wondered how that worked. I wasn't allowed on McCorder for. Okay, that's a different story. I'm not getting into that. So,
Nice. I had family that was actually stationed up in Washington for a while.
so when she first walked out, I thought it was human. That's why I didn't know what I was looking at. I mean, I grew up hearing the stories from my family. My grandmother, my mother, my aunt all had encounters. My mother saw really, really close up. And the common thing was they said they all looked like what was on the Patterson Gimlin footage. She didn't even have a pointy head and a silhouette. That's why I thought it was a woman. Once I saw what it was and it came out, I didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
The word Sasquatch wasn't even popping in my mind. She was hairy, but she didn't look like an ape. It the hair was a density of like a really, really, really hairy man's chest. I could see her skin through it. It wasn't fur. I could see the color of her skin through it, but I really couldn't see her skin, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Just enough hair to kind of see through a little bit, and then that's about it, really.
Right, right. You could see like the glimmer of the skin. Her skin was a tan color. I was the other person asked me what color the skin was, and at the time I couldn't really think. I kept trying to say bronze. Then I said tanned leather. What I should have said was stained leather. It was the color of
Okay.
like stained leather, like a leather stain when you're dyeing a belt. That was kind of what her skin was.
Yeah, I got a wood watch, and it's got this color on it.
That's the color. That is the color.
That's what I was thinking. It's kind of a stained woody, stained leather kind of skin tone. This actually, I've heard quite a few times. Some of the actual encounter stories I'm working on right now, some of the experiences that like I say, I turn them into like campfire like stories for fun. But this is something I get that, or I get this kind of charcoal grayish kind of color.
That's what my mother told me.
Yeah, so I get basically two for the most part. One is that kind of, like you said, that kind of stained leather or stained kind of redwoodish color, or you get the grayish color, gray, um, you know, ashen color. So cool. Yeah, this fence, man, that fence is pretty tall. I don't even come to this top bar. I'm 5'7" and a half. I'm still shy of kind of average height for a guy. Um, that
That's my
fence
height.
right there has got to be, what do you think? About 8 feet?
Okay, I'm your height. Well, not in the half. I wish I had the half. I'm 5'7".
Hmm.
I could grab the top of the bar if I reached my hand up over. I
Okay.
mean, without it being fully extended.
So we're
Yeah.
talking about an 8 foot fence there then to the top there, and its head was over that.
Yeah, but the its head was above that to the second strand of the barbed wire. Okay, I couldn't
Okay.
see her head. What I saw was her breath, the fog out of her breath coming through the barbed wire area.
Okay. So even if it was just, as say her head was in this particular section right here,
Yes.
and you could see her breath coming through there, you're still looking at about 8.5 feet tall.
Mm-hmm. And her
That's a tall
breasts were at
basketball
my
playing woman.
forehead. That's why I'm saying she. It was definitely a she. Her breasts were right there at my forehead.
Okay.
She was touching the fence. I mean, I was right next. If that fence wasn't there, she could have grabbed me. That's how close we were. And
So
I'm
you were
still,
right in front of her.
yes.
Oh my
If she was actually standing back, I probably would have saw her head, but I couldn't see her head because she was right there next to the floodlight.
Mhm.
But I got a good look at her breasts.
And you could just hear, you could hear her.
Oh, at this point, I could hear her breathing and everything. I could see her breath. She was making sniffing noises. Okay, I was actually getting in well, I didn't get in an argument. I was just talking to a guy who's into that paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I do try to tell this to other people, they try to jump that this is a paranormal stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was something that weird that happened, but it's not paranormal. I know what was going on. She did make me drop my weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she's there. Now I know what she looks like. I mean, this is all in split seconds from when I see her silhouette. Now she's up against the fence and her fingers are through it. She's grabbing the chain links. Oh, that is one big, huge detail that I noticed on the chains. You know that they make a little diamond shape when they go through.
Yeah.
Each one had a finger in it.
So
Like
kind of like that.
normally, yeah, like normally when somebody puts their fingers through, maybe two fingers will be in one hole, two fingers will be in another hole. Maybe
Yeah, she went with all of them.
every finger mostly had its own little link it was on.
Huh.
And that's why I said I saw the palms. When I'm telling you the color, I don't really know what the flesh underneath because it was like a glimmer, but her hands were that color, the palms of her hands.
Okay.
And her fingernails were all nicked and dirty and cruddy, but they were white. They weren't black. I heard some people say they have claws or black fingernails. They were just like ours.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're up that close and you might see something that's kind of clawish looking, it's maybe just because it's nicked, chipped, broken somehow, and it just kind of looks that way.
I mean, that's how close I was. I could see the crud in her fingernails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm like you. I'm not really much into these things phasing in and out from Mars or the ether world. I'll leave that for video games.
And she wasn't acting like she was highly intelligent. I'll put it that way. But what happened was I said it again. Now I'm seeing it because I don't know what else to do. I said, "Halt! Who goes there?" She's like right there.
Not doing anything. Halting.
And I know this isn't my platoon sergeant at this point. I don't know what to do. The other guy's not around. He's back in the guard shack. I have this loaded M16 with 3 rounds in it, but I don't think they're going to do anything but piss her off if I was to fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I raised the weapon up, like aiming, knowing I'm not going to pull the trigger because the other thing was, I'm not sure what this is, but I'm sure it's human. Like maybe it's the things that were going through your mind, everything except Bigfoot. It was like, I don't know, maybe some hippie lady walked around where we kept our nuclear stuff and she got mutated. That made more sense to me at the time than Bigfoot.
No doubt, man.
Because she didn't meet the stereotype that what I had preconceived in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But what she did was she made that noise again, point blank in my face. Right, you see how close she's on one side of the fence. I'm on the other side of the fence. She's
that kind of ha ha.
Right, but point blank in my face.
Okay.
And it paralyzed me. I'm not gonna say. And when I say that, people think like some alien with a ray gun. No, it was.
It's just something so out of the ordinary. From you're thinking that, if this is this doesn't match a person, but your mind keeps trying to tell you person, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not that. And so all of a sudden you just become kind of physically numb to things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was trying to rationalize what the heck I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I already believed in Bigfoot because of my family growing up. I heard all the stories when I was a kid. It's just, this wasn't that. I didn't know what this was. This didn't meet the description. I now think there's at least 4 different species that are all being generically called Bigfoot because per region the descriptions get different. There's the charcoal gray thing you were talking about.
Yep.
This colored thing down south, they say they're jet black.
I think there's pretty much, personally, I'm one of the believers that there's basically two types. You have a kind of a skunk apish thing, taller. It's tall. It's a little bit skinnier, lankier, a little less hairy, something around the southern part of the hemisphere here in North America. And then you have kind of your patty kind of thing, except for in your case, maybe this one was just different. I don't know.
After my encounter, I looked this up. Washington actually does have two different types. Something they call a Neanderthoid, and I think that's what I saw, and then the stereotypical patty type. But
Okay.
the Neanderthoid thing, they're also called marked hominids.
Mhm.
Those are usually up in the northern Cascades around the Canadian border where those are reported. This happened on around Fort Lewis. So down south in Texas, we got three different types that were reported. The swamp stalkers, like the falcon
Well, you
monster,
got three different types of terrain
cataway.
there. Yeah, I mean, you can have kind of a more mountainy kind of an area. You got a high desert, and you've got
Yeah.
you know swampy terrain in sections of it. So you kind of get a mixture there.
But the phenotypes are completely different. Like what they're calling swamp stalkers, like our Caddo Lake monster, falcon monster around the Sabine, they're said to be shorter, stockier, and have longer hair. Basically, like Cousin It on steroids.
Yeah, and with a really bad attitude.
Right, and highly aggressive, which
Very
makes sense
aggressive.
because there's not really their behavior suggests that they're territorial, where the behavior of what's up here suggests that they're nomadic. I think they might migrate between the Cascades and then into the valleys per
I
winter.
think they do too. I think they actually go from high Cascades down to the valleys and near the ocean, actually, to the Cascades over there, to where especially during the winter when you have a little less snow in those areas, it's a little less harsh of a winter. Things are thriving still. Food is plenty between the beaches and the mountains and the valleys there. So I'm thinking that they move from these higher regions down to these other regions near the coastline during given times of the year.
Actually, because I'm a wildlife management major right now, but we have to do the forestry stuff, tree shrub identification,
Hmm.
and the more I'm learning in that class, it goes in correlation with the theory of them going from the mountains to the valleys to the coastals to the Cascades to the coastals. They're following berries, and
Yeah.
if they're not following the berries, they're following the deer and the other animals that are eating the
Mhm.
berries
Yep.
because
Exactly.
they happen to bloom at different times and then all the way back.
Exactly. When do you not see deer around a valley during hunting season in the fall? It's like you have to go up into the mountains to grab those things. But then,
Right.
come winter, they're right back down here again. They're back down in here. They're, amongst the orchards and the berries and,
In
everything.
summertime, midsummer is usually when the sightings stop or the reports slow down, which explains why they'd be up in the mountains. So unless you're mountain climbing, you're probably
Yes, unless you're an avid fly fisherman like myself, up
right.
in the, heading way up into the crags where you can still fish today, during that, winter, or you're, out there doing some sort of hunting that's at that time of year. I mean, yeah, I get that.
Oh, what I was
It's
saying
pretty
about that
awesome.
paralyzing thing, it was the noise she made. It's not like it was like a ray gun or it's like somebody putting their nails on a chalkboard and then scratching.
It
Yeah,
just gives you a feeling. You're just like, what
that's
is
exactly
this?
what it was.
What
That like
is this? Yeah, it's just, what is this? And you just react.
or like you're mowing your lawn, you hit a rock and that Chuck Key squeals.
Yeah.
It was that. It made me drop the weapon and point. Oh, I dropped my weapon and I'm not reaching down to pick it up. Now I'm focused on her because her fingers are through the thing, the links, and
Hmm.
I'm waiting to see if fight or flight was kicked in and fight wasn't an option. I was waiting for. I didn't want to turn my back on her. I was waiting to see if her hands would go up and try to climb the fence, but bending down to pick up that weapon wasn't. I didn't even think the weapon was going to do anything. So I'm waiting to haul butt But at this point, she just starts sniffing.
Hmm.
She gets quiet. I could see where her shoulders are kind of like moving as her head, and she's just like, what I hear is like bubbly snot, like somebody with a cold trying to sniff.
Mm-hmm.
Then she turns to her right, walks along the fence line, and continues that woo 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 thing.
Huh. And then just off into the night.
Yep. Well, we actually heard her a couple hours after. I mean, it went like, oh, did that just happen? It definitely happened because we could still hear her, for the next couple of hours. Now when it gets interesting, at this point, I'm still not thinking Sasquatch. My mind's still trying to rational it. It wasn't until the MPs come back. It was a major. I have to report to him. That was because like I said, I'm pretty much out of basic training, so I still got that little cherry mentality. I want to impress them before I became an E4 and just screw it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was a PFC at the time. So the major says anything to report. Well, it's your first general order. I will guard everything within the limits of my post and quit my post only when properly relieved. I will report all violations of my special orders and anything not covered in my instructions, commander of the relief. All that stuff's still in my head. I can't believe I still remember that crap. Anyway. So I didn't want to leave anything out. He said, did anything happen? Anything to report? And I said, yes, sir. There was a giant naked lady into the fence.
Weird, hairy, giant, naked, crazed woman.
Will you repeat that? And then I said a giant naked, and then I stopped, and I said, I think it was a Sasquatch. Here's the thing. He looked at me like I was nuts when I said giant naked hairy lady.
Mm-hmm.
When I said Sasquatch, there was no ridicule in his look. He just said, oh, so nothing happened then, and went to mark on his paper. No, sir. And then he cut me off and said, so nothing happened then. And I'm like, no, sir. He was okay. I get off, get in the Humvee, and I left. I mean, I got the total impression that he was very aware of what was going on and what was out there.
Yeah. Just something that they keep to themselves.
Well, and it's funny, because now Lewis McCord's one thing, but McCord Air Force Base's almanac did have them labeled as fauna.
Really?
In the 70s.
Oh, I didn't know that. I wonder if you can find some of those things around still.
Yeah, everybody messes up and says Fort Lewis. It wasn't Fort Lewis. I looked this up. It was McCord Air Force Base had a almanac of Pacific Northwest flora and fauna. Sasquatch was listed among the fauna.
You know what? Actually, let's do this real quick. I'm going to get on Google here. And did you say McCord?
Mm-hmm.
That would be
McCord Air Force Base at the time. Now I think it's called Joint Reserve or something, or Joint something base.
Let's go McCord Air Force Base. And I see that there. And then we're going to put almanac.
Well, you're doing that. I'm going to grab more coffee.
Yeah. It is not in here. So they're probably not going to.
It would have been around the 70s. Actually, Leonard Nimoy covered that back when he had the In Search Of series.
Oh, fauna. Yeah, I'd have to 1970. I'd have to see. Man, I'm want to kind of look in and see if I could get like a copy of that somewhere somehow at some point. That'd be kind of cool. Imagine, I'd love to have that.
Oh, the actual almanac?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
Let me see if we're on here, if I can find it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, man. That is quite the visual. That is interesting. Yeah, looking around this the perimeter of this place. Yeah, they've got this all gated up now.
That is. Some of my friends used to go out there and shoot their guns. That fence wasn't there.
Hmm.
Whoa,
Here's
what
the
happened to the trees?
Oh, it's gone. And they took all that. This is the Air Force. This is the landing strip. They took all that out.
Oh,
Yeah. Because you were now, where were you at on this here?
south of the Air Force Base. I was at Fort Lewis.
So Fort Lewis. Put this on here because it'll give me a
It's just, I mean, it borders McCord to the south.
right here,
It should be that area.
right in Hillhurst area.
What is that?
Oh, here's Joint Base Lewis. And I don't think it's gonna let me.
Okay, there's Madigan.
Yeah. Trying to see if it lets me down on this road. I don't think it's gonna let me down on there. Transmission line road. Here is Jackson Avenue.
If you
Wow.
can find Spanaway.
Oh, Spanaway was right over here. Spanaway Lake Park right here.
Be more south than that. That looks like it's up around the Air Force Base.
That is right
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Spanaway, McKenna Highway right here.
Are the gates labeled? This was near the east gate. I mean, I wasn't far from the. Oh, and then the Squally River.
Oh, Nisqually River. Let's see. I think this must be the river flowing through here. Nope, that's not it. I have to find the river. Because here's Spanaway. Right here. Huh.
I know the Nisqually River was the closest thing to us. It's right there next to the East Gate. And like I said, I didn't know where I was.
Here's
And
Eastgate Road right here.
okay, that's the area.
Yeah, and it will not let us down in there too far.
Figures.
That's funny.
Okay, see right there where it connects to
Johnson
that main
Marsh.
highway?
Yep.
That's the area.
Okay, so you're right in here.
Well, no, I wouldn't
I
be right
might.
there.
Oh, it lets me down here though.
I'm just saying I'm closer to there than I was the main post.
Okay.
And I had to go over the Nisqually River to get to where I was, and I wasn't too far from it. The little bridge
A little bridge.
we have on post. Yeah.
Hmm.
Is that it? That might be it.
Yeah, this is the corner there where Eastgate connects to Spanaway McKenna
Right. I'm
Highway.
not going to be off of the main road though. It was a little goat trail road that led to where we were.
Oh, so you're
It
off
was
on
hidden from the public view. So if you're driving down it, you would never saw it. It's
yeah, like this road right here goes
exactly
right
like
into
you
the
said right there.
trees. It continues right here. You can see,
Yes.
but there's this little tiny thing right here. but you can't go down here. It won't. The camera won't go down here. But you see that little opening?
Mm-hmm.
There's a road right here,
That was probably the road I was on.
and then there's an opening right here. Huh, interesting. That is cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that is just wide open. And then you come down here and you're running basically, I mean, something can wander in from all of this here, all the way through all of this and follow this whole line. If you look at this, you could follow this whole line through here and
And
out
back in the
into the
90s, that
forest.
wasn't
You
even
could even
nearly
go
as
through here.
developed.
Oh yeah, no, I bet you all of this right here was probably just open land, just like this right here, just trees and most of it at least.
I just saw Mount Rainier. I might be able to find the exact location. Mount Rainier was in my perspective by that morning as the sun was starting to come up.
Mhm.
Mount Rainier was towards where I saw her. Her back would have been to it.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's go. Let's go Mount Rainier. Oops.
When you were scrolling around, it was just there.
Yeah. So we go like this, and we can look at. So here is that. And here's Spanway, and here's Hillhurst. So you were over in here.
Oh, I was looking south then.
You were looking south. So yeah, you would be somewhere over in here, I'd suppose. Because here's Eastgate Road. Here's 8th Avenue. And yeah, there you go. You can get down in here now. Oh, look at that. That's just all thick woods all around there. That whole area. Yeah. Awesome, man. That is cool. Could you smell the breath at all?
Oh, that's the other thing. I couldn't smell anything. It was cold.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that was what I was saying with the rain. The rain was hitting I had my Kevlar on. The little ice pellets was hitting me in the back of the neck along with that cold wind. So I had my Gore-Tex jacket on. I stretched the hood up over my helmet, my Kevlar, because the wind was at my back. So she was an upwind from me. I couldn't smell anything. So if she had any odor, I couldn't detect it. The breath was blowing through the barbed wire and then back at her.
Oh, okay.
I could see it in the floodlights, but it's kind of fading up and back towards her.
Okay. Huh. That's crazy, man. When I heard your encounter that one time online, I was like, oh my gosh, that is just. And then connecting with you on the Facebook page there, man, just that's insane. It does make me think that there's, the possibility of the other type, another type. For me, it's like I do believe there's two types for sure, a patty type and then more of that kind of skunk ape type. Those we've heard about from the Native Americans to every report we've heard, but there are those reports like yours where it's just something that it's just different looking. You know what I mean?
Since that encounter, I was, especially with the way the military was acting, and before that happened, we already had another NCO who claimed to have saw one, and he was ridiculed. So I wasn't really wanting to tell anybody else in my unit what happened. I mean, I was operating the TOC 10 at the time, which is it was the command 10. I was the lieutenant's driver at the time for the platoon leader's driver. So I had to operate. I was his RTO. I had to operate it was like when you go out in the field, TOC 10's like the command center. It's where all the field phones run into. And So when I had the talk tent duty, I had to make sure everybody was awake, nobody was sleeping, do radio checks. We had one, the guy who was on the LPOP, which is the listening post observation post. That's kept away from the perimeter. It's supposed to be like the early warning. So if the enemy's coming, we were expecting an Op 4, the pretend bad guys that could show up.
Mm-hmm.
He radios in. I got movement. Okay, so I have the map grid coordinates out. I'm like, what are the coordinates? Said he comes back saying things that are not authorized to say on military radio. OSH, OF, OSH, OF, just bouncing back and forth. So at this point, that NCO I was telling you about and the lieutenant both wake up, and they're advising that sergeant to not that's not proper military etiquette on the radio. And he said, "I'm getting the F out of here." And that sergeant tells him that the platoon sergeant tells him that if he does, he'll get an Article 15 because he's leaving his post, and they'll nail him. And he says there's what was it? It was a funny word. A wool booger.
Woolly booger.
Yeah, he said there's a wool booger out here.
He was woolly booger. He's probably from the South originally. That's what they call it down there.
And nobody knew what he's talking about. He's like, what? He repeated it again. He said, a Sasquatch, a GD Sasquatch running around this MF. And
nice.
And they again tell him to watch his language and says it's probably the Op 4. And his last words was, there ain't no GD 9-foot tall Op 4 running around this MF. Or he didn't say MF, but okay. So then the other sergeant's threatening that he's going to get an Article 15 if he leaves his post and blah blah blah. While he's on the field phone arguing, threatening this guy, and the LPOP is a good damn near a mile. I mean, it's not quite a mile, but it's way far away from your perimeter. While the platoon sergeant's still on the radio talking to this guy, he comes crashing through the talk tent. This guy was a black guy, really dark black guy, but when he came in, he was a white guy. I mean, he was
he was just scared.
Yes, I've heard about that. I didn't think it would actually happen. He was an ashen white, and he urinated all over himself.
Oh, wow.
That is why he didn't get in any trouble, but I was told to keep that quiet for his sake because of
morale.
mental health or whatever.
Mental health, morale, whatnot.
But I mean, I was there, and then I mean the way it just got covered up, and then the way that that major responded to my incident. And I don't think the platoon sergeant or anything believed it. I think, but there may have been a existing protocol to, if that word is mentioned, don't acknowledge it.
Yeah, I think they have that same thing with the Forest Service. It's just a non-acknowledgement. It's just a plausible deniability. Nothing to see here, folks. Move on.
But after that, I was researching it. I think there are 4 human types and at least 1 ape type. And that if you look at the actual true definition of the skunk ape, when it first started in Florida in the sightings, the feet were arboreal. I mean, it was like little hand feet. They weren't like the hominid. Well, I don't want to say hominid. They keep changing the definition of that word. I took anthropology not too long ago.
Yeah.
The human-like feet weren't reported until later in the 50s, but skunk ape reports were around in the 40s.
Yeah, you have that kind of apish,
divergent toe, like a thumb.
Yeah. Like that.
Which Florida actually makes sense that a population, because back then, if you look up the way the regulations were, there were no wildlife licenses you needed. You wanted to buy an ape or something, you bought an ape. The circuses had them, trains wrecked, everything that gets in Florida becomes invasive because it's like a perfect climate. Yeah. If it was a population of orangutans or chimps and then they adapted to Florida's climate, I mean, they had a couple hundred years to do it. I think that's maybe what they're looking at.
Yeah. Adaptation is pretty awesome. Like I tell people, it's like I'm not a believer in evolution. I'm a believer in creation, but adaptation is a part of that. And for something like
Micro.
that to adapt to an environment like Florida is
Oh, yeah.
probably rather simple. I mean, this probably doesn't even have to really adapt to it. It's pretty already born to it. So,
As far as the
orangutans in
others,
Florida, like except for this last winter, that'd be the only time that would be a little bit cold for them. But other than that, yeah, pretty simple.
as for the others, I think they're everybody we have on the fossil record. All the other human species.
Um, me, I'm a staunch believer that it's a primate. I'm a staunch believer in the fossil record that we have of a Gigantopithecus, and
We're
that's
all primate. That's what I mean. I'm a creationist too, but I mean, I got to learn this stuff because I'm in college.
mhm,
There is macroevolution, which I do not believe in,
mhm.
and there's microevolution, and that's the adaptation you're talking about.
Yes,
That's
that's Finch's beaks. Yeah, that's how that works. But I mean, a
right.
pine tree has always been a pine tree. Has always been a pine tree. A chimp has always been a chimp. Has always been a chimp. I mean, that's what we find in the fossil record.
But primate is our order. It
But
has nothing to do with our genes. It's
exactly. See, because there's only one. It's like I always tell people. There's no such. You can't be racist. You can hate people, but you can't be racist because there's only one race.
but
I so
human
prove
is
that.
it's actually our genus. It's we
It's a kind. It's its own thing,
we
and
think of it that way. We think of it as a species because we're supposedly the only ones left. But if you look at anthropology, it was a I don't want to say class because class is a thing, but it was a there was a certain criteria to meet that order. That's why the others are linked in it. We're not like we're Homo sapiens sapiens. That's our species. Neanderthal was Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. Then you have Homo sapiens heidelbergensis. I think that's the last of the. Oh, Homo antecessor, Homo ergaster. Now they all fit the perimeters to be human. You have to be bipedal, have a brain case above 400 cubic centimeters, have fully articulating shoulders, but
mm,
that's all great apes. And the feet have to be terrestrial. So by those standards, Sasquatch are human of a different species than us. There'd be us, there'd be them. Microevolution would allow that. We have Sasquatch in us. And basically, what microevolution is, you have a set, your body's a box of Legos. You have all these little Legos in you.
mhm.
DNA is the box, the genes are the Legos.
Yes,
You can't build things that you don't have the Legos for. Like we'll never have no human will ever have arboreal feet because we don't have the genes to have arboreal feet. No chimp will ever have terrestrial feet because they don't have the genes. They don't have the Legos to put together to make terrestrial feet.
yes,
But let's look at Ursidae. You have polar bear, you have grizzly bear. Both of them have the exact same genes. It's the alleles of one are switched on, the alleles of another are switched off. Inside of a polar bear, there's everything to make a grizzly bear. Inside of a grizzly bear, there's everything to make a polar bear. But the polar bear has the alleles switched on for its climate. The grizzly bear has alleles switched on for its climate. And when you think about that, there's intelligence behind that that points straight to God. Now you have this new species that came out of nowhere that's throwing the actual hardcore evolutionists on their ear because the only thing that explains it is oh, keep wanting to say eugenics, but that ain't the word I'm looking for. You have the growler bear now. Polar
mm.
bear is losing its habitat. Now all of a sudden there's this new bear that came around. It looks like a cross between a polar bear and a grizzly bear.
Well, actually, we have 30% more ice today than we had even 20
Oh,
years
I believe it. But
ago. That's just a fact from then.
the tundra was neither bear could live in the tundra. This thing is living in the tundra.
Hmm?
And they're saying it was a
But they
hybrid
just found a
between
new monkey not too long ago, a few years back. It's about this big.
oh, what is it? Another marmoset?
Yeah, like a little marmoset monkey thing out in, I think it was in Central Africa somewhere, I believe it was. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. I can't remember the name of it though. But yeah, we're going down that road.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I love the whole when I first heard your encounter, um it ended up being one of my favorites just because I mean it was so close and it's just there's you were just so close. There's just for you. There's just no mistaking it.
No,
It's just like I don't know what I'm looking at. What in the heck is this? And
it didn't get creepy till after the fact. Like it was like, did she think I was her young one? Because I mean, then it's all coming together. It sounded like questions, like she was trying to communicate. And then I'm thinking, did she think I was one of her young ones because I had the
like
hood
maybe
up?
she lost one, or maybe it finally
Maybe
took
she was
off to
looking
go
for
out
a
on its
mate, and
own.
that one's really freaking me out. Explain the
That'd be crazy.
symptom.
But I mean, maybe it had sent off its young, and or maybe its young had already gotten to the point where it's like, I'm time for me to go. And maybe she had just, animals do that from time to time as well. They let their young go, but sometimes they're just like, hey, they still got to have that breaking point. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm not used to being alone yet. So who knows? It could have been a lot of things, but to hear that thing on and off for an hour or so afterwards, that'd be freaky to have to still stand there, just hoping it doesn't come back.
Not to
So,
get on the evolution thing, but I think this is vital to scientifically proving what they are.
mhm,
On your spare time, look up the Latoli tracks.
okay,
It's fossils of a what they think was Homo erectus. They tried to once say it was an Australopithecine that did it until we found out they actually have arboreal feet.
mhm. No, I
There's a
didn't know that.
trackway in Africa, the Latoli tracks.
Yeah.
They were put in ash. They are identical to Sasquatch tracks.
Hmm.
That's why I'm saying the only species of the humans that had the feet with arches is us. All the others, Neanderthals had heart-shaped feet, which you do find in Washington also. But
Yeah, that flat kind of.
narrow at the heel, broad at the toe.
Yep.
But the others, they have the perfect like Heidelbergensis erectus trackways that they think they left. They match Sasquatch, the stereotypical patty Sasquatch, to a T.
I'll have to check that out. Send that to me on Facebook too. I'll share that with everybody. But I will let you go here on a sec.
Already.
But thanks, man. Thanks, Heath, for sharing that with us. That was it. I'm telling you, I have like my 5 top favorite, and yours was one of them. It's like I got my 5 top favorite encounter stories of all time, and it's like that was one of them. And I was like, when I saw you on Facebook, like, oh, and so that's why I wanted to get you on
I
here.
saw you, and I was like, "That's a coffee guy."
I'm a coffee sipping nerd from the Pacific Northwest, man. No, I love it. It's been a lot of fun here, just kind of taking these basic, people send me little 4 paragraphs, 8 paragraphs, 10 million pages of encounters, and so their experiences. So it's fun just turning them into like campfire like stories for people, and it kind of it fulfills that kind of creative side for me. And at the same time, I've had my own experience. I've seen my own evidence, and I'm just a huge enthusiast of the subject. So for me, it kind of cures that enthusiasm I have for the Bigfoot subject of Bigfoot, and also the creative side of me. So I like that. It's fun. And but here and there, I don't have to. I can just sit in here and listen to folks like you just kind of share, what you experience, and that's kind of pure research side of it here, I think. And so appreciate you being on here and sharing that with us. But hold on for 1 second, all right?
Sure.
All right. All right, guys, thank you very much for being on here. PacWest Bigfoot. Hey, if you guys like this, get over to Facebook page, check it out. I'll try to share some of the other stuff that we were chatting about in here as well. So with that, God bless, and I will talk to you guys soon.